All right, let's talk a little bit about managing sport experiences, which is the name of the course, and let's talk about those sports experiences. When a person buys an experience, they're paying for the time spent. They're paying to spend time enjoying a series of memorable events that engage the individuals. These are staged by the organization. To do this, the firm needs a complete understanding of staging events and experiences. While the experience perishes upon the staged event's conclusion, the value of the experience lingers in the mind of the individuals who were engaged. That is, there's a memorable aspect to this, and we need to build on those memories. Your book incorrectly refers to experiences as services. That's simply not true. That is totally incorrect. Think about going to a gym. Going to a gym for the day is all about the time spent at the gym. The organization, that is the gym, needs to stage experiences every day, the same way that Disneyland stages experiences every day, the same way that a PGA Tour event stages experiences every day, the same way the university stages experiences every day, and the same way that your sports organization needs to stage experiences every day. That's a little bit easier if you're in the sports team business because you have games, and every game is an event, and every game everybody prepares for that game, and the game goes off and everyone tries to make that the best experience possible. It's a little bit more difficult to sort of understand that if you're a local fitness center where your team members have to understand that every day you stage an experience, and every day the people who are there are going to experience your organization. So this goes back to the notion we used to have this argument in marketing that you don't sell the steak, you sell the sizzle. Well, you no longer sell the steak or the sizzle, and you no longer sell the restaurant's great service. Now you must sell that steak eating experience. What was the experience like when I had that steak? The distinction between goods and services and experiences. Experiences are all about the time spent. It's the interaction between the individual and the staged experience. Let's always focus on that. Everybody who provides an experience has to think about staging experiences every day, whether you're a retailer or an experienced stager like Disneyland, or you're a hotel and casino, or you're the aviators, or you're the raiders. Identifying the core experience concept. One of the things that we need to understand when you manage experiences, you need to understand what the core experience is. And I'm going to give you an example from a consulting job of mine. I got a consulting job with the NHRA, which is the National Hot Rod Association, and I went over to Pomona to the Winter Nationals, which is one of their big first race of the year, and it's a very big event over in Pomona, California. And we were trying to figure out why NASCAR had increased the number of fans and NHR hadn't. And so the NHRA thought that NASCAR and the NHRA were direct competitors. And it turns out that they're both in the motorsports business, but they're not exactly the direct competitors because they don't offer the same thing. So if you go to a NASCAR event, how does that work? Well, you go early and you hang out outside the raceway, and you eat smoked turkey legs, and you do all the sorts of NASCAR things, and you buy a bunch of NASCAR memorabilia, and then you go inside and maybe you get the race radio on and all the other sorts of things to go along with that. But the thing about NASCAR is you'll be sit out in the sun for 2.5, 3, maybe even 4 hours because you want to see that last down the stretch race. You want to see a race at the end of the race. NASCAR changes the rules every single week on how the cars have to be set up, with the goal of making sure that the cars are equally matched so that there is a race at the end. It used to be that every NASCAR car had a body that represented, that was in fact a body of a car that the company was actually making. So Chevrolet sponsored cars use Chevrolet frames and bodies. They don't do that anymore. Now every single body and every single frame is exactly the same. They just stick a logo on the front of it. So it's not really stock car racing anymore. But NASCAR will do whatever it takes to have a race at the end of that race. Now, it hadn't dawned on me that the NHRA doesn't sell exactly the same thing until I went over to the Winter Nationals. Now, in some cases, at some racetracks, the idea behind an NHR race is that it's a quarter mile, and so the cars line up on the starting line, and they have a mechanism called the Christmas tree, which sets the cars off, determines when the cars can leave the starting line. And then they race to see which one can get to the end of the quarter mile the fastest. Now, that sounds to me like a race. And of course, I was out there and we were watching the race. And in some instances, when you're at the track and you're racing your car, it is a race. But what NHR really sells at their national events is something called speed. So I'm at the Winter Nationals, and I'm watching races, and of course the top fuel dragsters finally come out and they get all lit up, and it's sort of interesting because they burn something called they burn a nitro fuel, and when they light those cars up, the smell in the air changes. So people can be all over the racetrack and all over the pit area, and when they smell those nitros being lit up, everybody comes back to the track because they know that the fastest cars in the world are going to be running down this racetrack. So I was sitting there and watching the races, and two big drag racers come up to the line, and they smoke their tires and they get all set, and the Christmas tree goes off, and one car stalls at the starting line and the other one takes off and gets to the end of the quarter mile in less than 4 seconds and at 330 miles an hour. And everybody in the stands is up cheering. Now, there was never a race because one of the cars never actually took off from the starting line. But the people didn't care because what they came to see was speed. So NASCAR sells racing, NHR sells speed. It's important to understand the distinction and understand exactly what you're selling. That is extremely true for all sports experiences. So you need to define the experience. You need to understand the core experience, and then you can actually do a better job of managing that experience. So what are the dimensions of the experiences? Well, there are the senses. That is the five senses, taste, touch, smell, hearing, sight, those sorts of things. There are emotions, and so when you think about a sporting experience, think about the emotions. That is happy, sad, excited, upset. So you go to a Golden Knights hockey game. That full range of motions might go through your body as the night goes along. You're excited for the start of the game and you have this level of anticipation. And when the Knights score, you're extremely excited. And when those good for nothings Vancouver Canucks score, then you're unhappy and you're booing. And when you get a penalty on your team, you're upset. And then there's a fight breaks out, and of course now you have this higher level of arousal that are all sort of emotion based. There are thinking aspects, and that's of course is asking, and so as the game goes along, there's lots of thinking activities that go along with it. There are a number of actions. Every time you stand up and cheer, or stand up and try to get on the action cam, or all those sorts of things, those are all action-related aspects of the dimension to the experience. And then finally, we have the issue of relating. That is a sense of belonging, or a sense that you are a fan of that team. Those are the five dimensions then of an experience. Some key ideas in the design and delivery of experience. First, understanding the core experience and its benefits are absolutely critical. You need to be able to promote the experience. That is, educate, entertain, thrill, make you laugh, make you feel good. That is, you need to focus on what the experience is and make it memorable. You want to maximize the experience. That is, you want to make the experience as good as it possibly can be. When you go to a Golden Knights hockey game, they have painstakingly spent hours and hours and hours trying to make sure that the experience that you have while you're there is absolutely maximized. And then you need to make the experience memorable. Part of the value and the distinction between services and experiences is the memorable part. And so that can include making sure that people have souvenirs. Nowadays, the experience is sort of always more memorable because everybody takes 5,000 pictures and even videos while they're at the experience. All right, so think about interactivity. You need to get the customer involved in the experience. Think about when you go to a Golden Knights game. Think how engrossed in the game you are and how involved in the game you are. Cheering, dancing, singing along, cheering, booing. And then think about things like a Rebel football game or an Aviators baseball game, and you're simply not as involved in those games. Make sure you can meet the expectations that you build. That is, if you say the event is going to be exciting, it better be exciting. If you say it's going to be the greatest show on earth, then it needs to be a pretty good show. Understand that demand is probably not elastic within some relevant range. So that means that people are less concerned about the price they pay and more concerned about the quality of the experience. An example of this is the PGA Tour event, the Shriners Open. I don't know, ticket prices range from $35 down to about $5 for the event. But the fact is, people who don't go to the golf tournament don't decide not to go because the price is too high. They decide not to go because they don't think the experience is going to be good enough. And then finally, you need to be able to minimize and detract any unpleasant factors. Waiting lines at restrooms and snack bars, dirty restrooms, those sorts of things are unpleasant factors that either detract or enhance the experience, but they are not the experience. In summary, we're in the experience economy, and in no place is that truer and absolutely clearer than in the sports business.